Hello, welcome to another live Google Hangout on the Living Income Guaranteed. And today we are going to be having sort of like a Mother's Day special, which is about homeschooling, learning by living. And we've talked about many times throughout these Hangouts, also with Anna Briggs Thompson, about education and how the current system is not the best one that we can give to our children, and it's really not supportive to develop children's potential, and even more so just like a training ground to make good workers. All of this is leading many people to find other solutions, alternatives, including homeschooling. So today we have a mother that decided to homeschool her children, and she's today with us from Maine, Carrie Tooley. Hello, Carrie. Welcome to the Hangout.
Hi, Marlen.
And so to everyone watching, please remember that there are questions and comments that are available as you are watching the video. You have to be logged into your Google Plus account. I'm sorry that mobiles do not handle this Q&A app, but you can also place comments once that the video is uploaded onto YouTube. And so without further ado, I'd like you to remind also our viewers to subscribe, to rate this video if you like what you see and you find this supportive, and not only on this topic, but on many others that we have as a discussion here to create solutions and to have ourselves talking about things that really matter in terms of what are we doing to the system and how can we change it. So let's get into our discussion, Carrie. I'd like to first of all, if you can share with us, why did you decide to homeschool your children? How did it all begin?
I actually have an older child. She's 25, and my youngest is 7. My oldest child went through the public school system. Uh, I wasn't satisfied with her education. I saw that she wasn't learning anything, and she gave me feedback to tell me that she actually wasn't all through her time in public school. When I called the school, I would be told that she was right where she needed to be, and I knew otherwise. And also, there were conflicts that came up at school that the school I didn't see they were directing appropriately. And I was told that she would get used to it, or they were just being kids, and that was never okay with me. When my son was about 2, we made that decision to homeschool. I saw that the school system wasn't getting any better, that it was actually getting worse, and that the schools weren't in a position to take responsibility to be a caregiver for my child. So we took that on.
Also, I mean, for many parents also watching, to them it might seem like a load of responsibility, because as a parent you have to take care of the basic necessities such as providing them shelter, clothing, food, basic education. But the regular standard is that, okay, this is my job, and then the school's job or the teacher's job is to get my child educated. So how has it been for you to decide to take on this role of, I am a mother, and at the same time I decide to be, let's say, a form of a teacher or a teacher? What do you say on this?
It's really a natural thing. I eased into it. The role of the teacher for me I'm really not a teacher in the traditional educational sense of the word. I'm more of a facilitator, a supporter, a listener, um, and I'm here to direct things maybe when they get a little out of hand, and to pick him up when he falls down, but I allow him to fall. But uh, there was no change I had to make other than my work schedule. I started working a lot of hours a week, like 50 or 60 hours per week, and then I went down to 40, then 20, and then a couple days a week at work, and now I'm at home all the time. And I was fortunate enough to find a job where I could work from home on my computer. So I'm always here now. That's the only adjustment that I've had to make to anything. As parents, we're natural teachers for our children anyway.
That is something that I've heard also from other people that have gone through either homeschooling or parents that decide to take on this task, that they were maybe fearful or not seeing themselves as prepared enough to take on this role as a facilitator, as you call it. So, did you have to prepare yourself in any particular way, or how did you start it? From what kind of materials did you read on, or did you take any other person as a reference?
It's so funny because I went into homeschooling, I wanted to be that traditional teacher. I have a huge bookcase full of material, workbooks, textbooks. I'm planning up until he's third, fourth grade. Um, and he wants none of that. Um, so, I mean, I could have gone into this with no plan. In my uh, area, Maine, we have a portfolio that we have to submit every year. So that's the organization part. That's the part where we show what they're learning. But a lot of it can be photos of all the field trips they go on and their play dates. And we go on so many adventures together. So all of that can be included in those subjects. It doesn't necessarily have to be book work.
That was part of my question, in terms of how is homeschooling related to the general education system, especially in America, where now we have things like Common Core and the standardization of education, and it seems almost like an obligation to send your kids to school. So how does it work, if not in the US, at least in your state? You mentioned that you have to follow a certain portfolio on a yearly basis. But many people might say, well, what about their certificate? Are they going to be able to get to college and take SATs and all of this? So, what's the story on this?
Um, I know that the kids in my area get into college early. One of the kids in our homeschool group, he's 16. He just got into Maine Maritime Academy, which is huge. Like, it's a really good school. 16, he's in. And it's also free. Um, a lot of these kids are getting scholarships. In my state, they've made arrangements for the homeschoolers to be able to go to college for free because they are going in so early. They find that one thing that they're just passionate about and they go for it.
In terms of the principles that we also advocate within the context of Equal Life Foundation, which means the overall process when we want to make of the systems of the world something that is more suitable to precisely develop this kind of skills and principles that are not currently taught in school. So I would like very much to hear what kind of principles are you integrating in your child's education that you definitely saw that no education system as a particular school would give to children, and how you have practically walked through that process?
Uh, Self-respect, um, self-honesty, self-integrity. Those are the things that we work on the most here. And I will align uh, things like I mentioned the point in before the interview of karate. We go to karate. I found a dojo that's aligned with those principles. So they're reinforcing it also. Um, but those are the things that we work on the most together. It's how I direct myself. Um, so I work on it with him. As a child, it's not so easy, but it's getting easier for him uh, to understand what I'm saying. He just does not want to hear it. He's like, "Come on, mom, I really don't want to discuss this." But as he gets older, the easier and easier it becomes. Did that answer your question?
Yes, what I would like to also know is in terms of how can he, let's say, relate to other kids? Because we know that schools are mostly like the socializing or getting into a little part of a society where children create friends and kind of get to know authority, and they're sort of shaped to be part of a system, a functional cogwheel in the system. So how are you planning to or how are you dealing with this process of integrating him to, for example, see friends or have this relationship with others even if they're in public schools, or how does that work on your side?
We have a homeschool group that we meet up with once a week, or twice a week, or 3 times a week, depending on what's going on. We do all of our field trips together as a group. Um, but they meet up at a gym at least 2 times a week. Um, and they just run around and play and make up games. And they're all different ages. We've got ones that are still in diapers and ones that are in college. And they all get along really well. There's very little, if any, competition going on. We have an occasional temper tantrum that comes up, but that's easily directed. And usually the older kids will take care of the younger kids that are feeling insecure. They'll run over and um, nurture them or hold them, and they just snap right out of it. So it's a very cool environment for these kids to be in, and they problem solve together. Um, so as far as authority figure, the kids kind of see the parents as authority figures in a way, but still, where uh, we don't get in to what they're doing. We just let them go, and we're just on the sidelines if they need anything from us.
So there's no need to, let's say, kind of separate the role of I am now your mother and I am giving you food, or I am taking you to the doctor and I am now your facilitator or teacher type of situation. It's just like a natural company that you become to him, right? So how does this affect your relationship with him?
We're very close, very, very close. We talk about a lot of things together. Um, I see us getting even closer as he gets older. Uh, that's how our relationship is. It's the same with my daughter. She can come and she can talk with me about anything, and we can sort through it together.
I
That's
find that
just
very cool because many times what happens, as I was mentioning earlier, parents just say, okay, I just give you food, I just give you money, and I don't know anything about your life. Deal with your friends at school. And no communication is developed. And if we look at the greater picture of how we create society, many times a lot of the problems actually stem from parents not having or developing proper communication with their children. So from what you're telling me, this is would be like an ideal way to create individuals that can develop these living principles that you mentioned and that can become effective individuals in society, which I find very relevant. So before we go to the questions that are arriving, I'd like to ask you, what happens when you get to the more intricate subjects? Let's say some people have this usual fear toward maths or algebra or something like that. So is there such point existent within you as to maybe outsourcing the tutoring or providing him other sources of courses or something like that, or maybe in a community where he can take these subjects, or have you thought about that?
yeah. If he becomes interested in something that I don't have much of an idea about, I would find a tutor. Most likely with Hunter, he would find what he wanted on the internet and he would join it. If it was math or chemistry or something intricate like that, he would find what he needed and he would sign up. He'd check with me, or he'd have me come over and just make sure that he's doing everything right and filling everything in right, but he would just do it.
It's quite fascinating. We were discussing before the hangout started how he's very like, he moves himself around the internet. And people like my age, we got the internet a little bit later, so we didn't have those tools right away when we were 7 years old. But nowadays, 7 years old that can be more aware of their parents about the world system and conspiracy theories and stuff like that, which
Yes.
quite amazing. And it's also interesting like how they kind of awaken this thirst to know, to understand the world. Maybe they realize the problems and start looking for solutions at the same time. So can you share a little bit on that?
Yeah. Hunter, they have all of the information they could possibly need. Everything they need to know is right there. And he moves through the internet with so much speed. Uh, uh, a couple of examples of the things that he knows. I was telling you about this, we were watching the SpongeBob movie, and these Illuminati symbols were coming up. And he was really put off by that. He's like, why are Illuminati symbols in SpongeBob SquarePants? And he thought that was completely unacceptable for that to be in there. And it's just amazing that he knows. But other kids his age know too. They're very aware of what's going on because of the internet. Uh, Another example is one day he said to me, Mom, I have something I need to talk with you about. In 2025, there's going to be a meteor that's going to hit the earth and we're all going to die. And I said, not likely. He's like, how do you know? I said, it's just not likely to happen. And he says, well, you do know that there's going to be World War III, though, right? I was like, no. He's like, well, how do you know that? I'm like, us adults aren't going to let that happen. We're not going to allow it. And he's grateful to hear that because, he's learning all of these things from the internet. But he can come to me and we can discuss them together and we can make it very practical. And just focus on what we're doing here and now instead of some future event that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, this is something that I suggest to every parent. And as adults, I mean, I have also like a niece and nephew, and I can be there also for them whenever they have these kind of questions. And this is something that we should all learn how to deal with. So thanks for sharing also how you
You're
deal with these
welcome.
kind of questions. So let's go to our questions. And this is from Anna Briggs. And she's saying, does your son interact with children who are in school? And if so, have you noticed any particular differences between schooled and homeschooled children?
At his age, it's hard to differentiate. The kids are still pretty bright-eyed and happy. Uh, Especially the friends that he has, their parents are very stable. That's the only reference that I have is his cousin and his another little friend of his that lives around the corner, and they meet up once in a while, but not all of the time. But the parents, as I said, it's all about the parents, with the public school kids, and if the home life is stable and the parents are stable, then the kids will be fine.
I've also heard other stories like people that homeschool their children because they want to implement certain religious principles with that. So I would consider that that's a whole other subject wherein maybe they do want to isolate their children from being part of the regular, um, you know, type of children and having these specific belief systems integrated. Have you heard of cases like this?
Oh, yes. In our homeschool group, most of them are Christian. Uh, then there's me. So they haven't really isolated themselves. We have really cool discussions with them. They're Mormons, so really interesting people. So yeah, I see where there are some homeschool groups that I've heard that won't let anybody into the group unless you're Christian. Um, so Yeah, I mean, it's out there. It's any form of separation that you can imagine is out there, and that's just one of them.
Yeah, of course, within the context of Equal Life Foundation and you being part of it, it means that the principles that you're integrating have nothing to do with any form of dogma. It's basically what you just mentioned before, the self-integrity, self-respect, self-honesty. These are things that make a self-responsible individual. So they're just like a natural aspect that we all should be developing within ourselves anyway. So thanks, Anna, for your question. And we have another one from Rev Dalmas, and she's saying, as a parent, do you find that you learn and expand in your awareness as you facilitate your child's learning?
Yeah, this whole letting go thing has been big for me. Uh, not controlling everything he's doing and not deciding what he needs to learn or how he needs to learn it or that I need to be right there, right on top of it all the time. And then I need to be coming up with all of these activities for him to do, and I need to be making it fun, and all of these ideas that I had about education and parenting. I've had to let go of all of them. Um, that's been huge for me.
So it has been like a learning process for you as well on that. So let's get on to, thanks for your question, Rebecca. Let's get on to the pros and cons of homeschooling, because we in these hangouts before we have discussed a little bit about the education system in itself, but you as a homeschooler, can you share with us what are the pros and cons?
The pros are we're always together. I actually get to be a part of his growing up, which is cool. Especially with my first child, I wasn't able to be there. This time around, I get to be a part of everything and really get into enjoying his process of growing up. Another, I don't have to put him on the bus every day. Uh, I don't have to get him up early in the morning. He has his own sleep schedule. He goes to sleep when he wants. He wakes up when he wants. He does what he wants. Outside of the commitments that we've made, he does whatever he wants to do. Um, so he has an opportunity to understand what freedom is.
And sorry to interrupt you there, but
Yeah.
maybe some people are pondering, well, isn't that like too much, giving a free rein to your child? And is he going to learn discipline and this kind of things? Or will he ever then get adjusted to going to work from 9 to 5 and have these tight schedules and deadlines? Yeah. So what can you tell us about this? Do you see it as a problem or not?
I don't know. I'll deal with it when we get there. You know, uh, I can't go into worry about who he's going to be or who he's not going to be. I mean, with my daughter, I thought she was going to be somebody totally different than she turned out to be. It's not up to me. It's up to her to decide who she's going to be and how she's going to turn out.
Okay, cool. So now you can continue with the other pros.
But I mean, I understand that mindset of, well, they got to get out, they got to get a job, they got to be able to support themselves. I've lived it, so I can understand it. I just realized that it didn't change anything, me worrying about all that stuff. And so we're trying something a little different with Hunter.
And I would say and add that this is also coming from our current survival mode that we have all been entrained into as part of the system, wherein if you don't have a job, then you don't have a way to make a living. And then that's the whole idea of sending your kids to school, anyways. So that's why also we see homeschooling as a very cool alternative that quite fits into the paradigm of the living income guaranteed. Because if people are giving a living income, especially mothers and fathers as well, we will talk a little bit about that later, then
Okay.
there would be no need to place your kid under that stress of, oh, you must go to school and get a job and aspire to have this kind of lifestyle, because all of that is just what keeps the same system running. So I really like the way that you see these kind of questions, because you're already kind of preparing him for a new paradigm. And that's precisely what we require parents and children to get used to, this new awareness that things can be different and we have to make them different. And it all begins by removing this kind of fears and these kind of limitations and perspectives of scarcity and having no money, all of that, so that we instead develop individuals with proper principles and are well suited to face the world in the end.
Exactly. And that brings up something with me. And one day, a hunter and I were driving down the road, and he saw some homeless people on the side of the road, and you could see it really bothered him. It's like, Mom, he's like, why are there homeless people around us? Well, they're not being taken care of. And he's like, it just didn't make sense to him. And I said, don't worry, Hunter. I said, we know that these people do not belong on the street. And there are a lot of people who are working on making sure that these people are taken care of and that this never happens again. And that when you're older, you're not going to have to worry about people being on the street. You're not going to have to worry about kids not having a roof over their head or not having food to eat. And, if we do our job right, none of this is going to continue to affect you, or be something for you to have to deal with when you get older. And he's like, okay, cool, thanks. You know,
That's a kind of responsibility that I suggest we all take into consideration as well, because many times, like the answer that I got from my parents when I was growing up and I was 3 years old, and I asked, why is that kid that is my age selling stuff on the street like candies? Why can't he just go with his parents and have an ice cream like I'm going to? And they were like, well, that's the system. That's how things are. Of course, I became frustrated with that answer. And that's why
yeah,
I became who I became. Um,
yes,
but it's so cool that you're already sharing with him, look, we're going to do something about it, and you're going to be part of it as well. Because we have to place as much attention as possible to these new generations. I mean, many times a person that is older has a very difficult time to even comprehending giving a living income to everyone. It's like, what? Why? It's my job. And all of these kind of excuses. But now with what you shared about your son, he totally gets it that people shouldn't be suffering. So that means
yeah,
that they're ready to embrace a new paradigm, which is awesome.
yeah, totally ready.
So
So the cons, where was it? As I've mentioned, he can go into college early. I'm not sure how it is in other states. If he wants, if he chooses. Um, but the most important thing is that he just has the freedom to be who he wants to be and express himself. He's got a very stable, well balanced life between friends and home and um, our adventures that we do together where we're learning things. And he loves to game, so he's on the computer or on the Xbox a lot and playing with so many kids from all over the world on Xbox. It's a pretty cool thing. Uh, the pros, the cons. Cons are we're always together. It's the same as the pro. I don't often get a chance to get things done outside of home that I want to get done. The groceries, my husband takes care of that on the weekends because Hunter hates going grocery shopping. He will drag himself down the aisles like, when is this going to be over? And the same with errands and whatnot. There's something he wants to be doing that isn't that. Um, so it's so and most parents at this age, their kids are in school, so they have got all day long, to come and go as they please, and that's not my life, and it won't be my life until he's able to be comfortable being home by himself.
I was also, today is Mother's Day, so I was congratulating some of my, my sisters, and I told them parenting is the most important job that you're going to be doing in this world, and every hard work has its, let's say, you reap what you sow, essentially. So as you're mentioning this, I see that yes, you do not have this free time that mothers that send their children to school have, but in the end, it will have its, of course, lots of rewards, because then you will know exactly what your child went through, what your child was integrating as part of his knowledge awareness. You develop this communication. So in the end, I would see that that is so much also like an investment on our society that I would encourage. And if I would have a child, I'm probably going to do that.
Cool.
Like a form of investment onto society, because we know how children that go to school turn out. They go through bullying, and they go through this assessment of being the dumb one, the intelligent one. So how have you also looked at this aspect of, you're in a group in the school system, and you have all of these references and groupings. So is Hunter, your son, aware of that, or how does it go with it?
Like groupings like popularity or unpopular kids or the smart kids, they don't really have that. Um, he's got the kid. He's got a 10-year-old who's his best friend, and they just hang out together and talk and walk around and a couple of bosom buddies. So it's and then you've got the other kids playing around, and then they'll go join up with the other kids and they'll play. But there's none of the bullying and whatnot. And when we have had issues come up like that in the past, we take them on as our own responsibility. Like my husband will show Hunter how to handle the situation. Um, and then Hunter takes that on and knows that he can take it on for himself.
How about the challenges that maybe are not so much related to schooling per se, but we did entitle this hangout Learning by Living, such as challenges when it comes to maybe some basic discipline of tasks and chores at home that he doesn't really want to do? How do you deal with that as well? Does he understand that as part of something that he has to do, or he just doesn't do it? How do you deal with it?
He doesn't really have too many chores. Right now, I just like him to focus on growing up. Um, so what 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 how do I put this into words? So a part of living is that you have things come up and you learn how to deal with them. So he's playing a video game and he starts freaking out, because somebody did something to his something, and just screaming, yelling, crying, and so I mean that's an opportunity to show him how to calm down, how to come out of it, how to come up with a solution to not react the next time. Um, so that's what's most important to me. The points that come up that we can talk about, we can sort out together. Like if he says something like, I'm stupid, I don't belong here, I don't know why I was born. I mean, this is all the stuff that goes on in kids' heads. But it's slowed down for him. So it's very easy for us to work with what's coming up, and it gets better as he gets older. It's starting to kind of sink in at this age.
That's also part of what a living skill is. Children are not really taught how to deal with their emotions in school, how to deal with what other people might say about them, or how to look at solutions and not get caught up in problems. And that becomes eventually what many people might call, like, they have social anxiety and depression and maybe even ADHD and stuff like that, which can be prevented, I would say, from this kind of relationship that you develop with your child. Before we go to the question, I'd like to ask you about the social stigma. Is there any social stigma in relation to having a child that is homeschooled or you being a homeschooling mom?
When we first started off and decided that we wanted to homeschool, there definitely was. Our families were freaking out and they were trying all different kinds of tactics to get us to put him in regular school, but we stuck to our grounds. I mean, we saw what we saw, we made the decision, and that was it for us. We made the changes to make it happen. Um, Now, no, I mean, he's really accelerated. Uh, there's nothing that school can offer him. There, there's just he's got a whole group of friends. He's got his physical activities. Um, as far as the things that he needs to learn to function in this world, he has all of them. He's reading at like a fourth grade level, So, I mean, when people see that, they're like, oh, okay. They just kind of drop it. There's really no point of pushing it, from there.
That's just one or another proof of how we are usually fearful of going out of the boundaries or the paradigm that is given to us because, oh, what will people say? Or, oh, will my child be left behind or something? But it has been proven also by several studies that people that are homeschooled, they are even requested by not only colleges and so forth, but companies and so forth, because they are better suited. They have like this active role as well, which is what many companies are also now requesting. So if we look at it from the greater picture, once again, this whole idea that a homeschooled will be left out or singled out or not considered as a suitable person for a job, that's just a myth, I would say.
Yeah,
We
I
have
would
the
say so too.
we have a question from Gabriela Cebes, and he's saying, hi, I would like to know, how do you manage aspects like sexuality of your child, and how do you approach such topics? I ask this because we usually regard these topics as difficult to manage, and in school, teachers don't know how to do it.
Hmm. It's just not an issue with us. It's his body. It's who he is. We don't make something out of sexuality. The only time sexuality like really comes up is like when we're watching TV and whatnot. Those are where the really strong sexual themes are, which is actually quite cool. Because the TV is bringing it up, and so it's giving us points to work out later. But at this point, it is where he's at. It's just not something that we've had to sort out or face. It's just not, the interest isn't there. Once the interest is there, we'll go into it.
He's also saying because such topics are usually left to the psychologists of the school or things like that, but in the very end, it's not their child. And you being like with a close relationship to him, maybe it's easier for you to direct it.
Oh yeah, when it comes up, I will be there, and his dad will be there.
And that is just an outflow of the relationship that you've built with him, which is very cool, of course. So as a final question, I'd like to know also the role of your partner or his father, and whether he takes part in the homeschooling process, and if so, tell us about it.
As far as educating him, I know that there's a lot that he wants to teach him. Um, my husband's diamond certified diesel mechanic, which is like having your PhD in diesel mechanics. And there's a lot that he would like to pass on to him, but he works so much and he works so hard that he isn't able to do that, and it's really unfortunate because there is a lot that he would like to do with Hunter, but he's just so exhausted after work, and on the weekends, he goes and gets groceries for us, and then he'll go out and do other errands, and then he likes to have a day to just let his body relax from the week. So it would be cool if that would stop. I would like that um, for my husband and other husbands to be able to be home with their children, other dads,
Yeah, because
because I
it's
know they
mostly
really want to
mothers,
be.
right?
What's that?
It's mostly mothers that take this role of homeschooling, and not so much parents because they have to make a living and so
Yeah,
forth.
we do have a couple of homeschool dads, and they're really cool. You know, they're the ones that are out, when we go to gym, they're the ones that are out playing with the kids in the gym while us moms are sitting there talking. But they're the ones out being active with the kids, throwing the balls, getting things going. So it would be cool to have that balance in our children's lives.
Definitely. And I would say that this should be an available option for many parents that are not able to even consider the idea of homeschooling because, once again, both have to work multiple jobs at a time to make sufficient money to keep the entire family alive. So, once again, within the context of the living income guaranteed, then if you want to be a stay at home mom, you can get a living income. And if you are, for example, in your case, your partner could get a higher wage and get less hours of work, and so maybe program in more time to spend with your son, and so participate actively in this homeschooling process. So once again, the limitation that we have imposed with money and not having sufficient or not giving to ourselves sufficient money is affecting the way that we live as a society, because education, parenting, I would say, is the foundation of what we become as a society. So this is why this is such an important process. And I really thank you for being an example of a mother that has decided to take on this process of homeschooling and sharing with us what you've learned and how beneficial it really sounds. And so what would you, just to finalize the hangout, what would you say, or how would you suggest that we could maybe assist parents or integrate this kind of alternative into the education system as a whole? Because I know that many people say, well, I don't want that. I want my child to go to schools. Sure, we can, of course, modify the schooling programs to integrate some of these things, but how would you, for example, suggest people go about with this homeschooling process, or what would you change within it, or what would you provide for them as tools?
Um, well, there's a few different things going on. You've got the parents that want to homeschool but don't have the confidence to do it. You've got the parents, the moms that want to homeschool and they want their kids home with them, and the dads, it's like, no, the kid's got to go to school. And then you've got the parents that are all, no, that's it, public school all the way. For, those parents that don't see that it's something that they can do, or they're not skilled to do, or um, yeah, it's a confidence issue. They just don't. They have this idea of what homeschool is, with the traditional education and whatnot, and they don't see themselves as qualified. It would be really cool if we could assist them to see that that's really just a belief. It's not the reality, and that homeschool is whatever you make it. The kid's going to learn. I mean, if you think about it, when we stopped going to public school, we didn't stop learning. We kept educating ourselves. Um, so that's what these kids are doing now. They don't have that public school time to wait out until they can get to doing what they want to do. They're doing it now. That's all it is. You're just there as however, in whatever capacity do you want to be. It's up to you
Yeah, we
how
have to
how you
also,
want to educate the child. Yeah.
and we also have to realize that children have this innate ability to learn, so we only have to be there as adults with them, walking along, maybe just giving direction here or there, but they're sometimes even more aware and more awakened than us as adults. So
Exactly.
awesome, Carrie. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing. If you, the viewer, are watching the repetition on YouTube and you have questions for Carrie, you can still place them as comments on YouTube and we will let her know. Please subscribe and vote up this video if you like it, because this is I would say information that really represents us and who we are also as a group of people that have united with a common goal, which is to make our world better. And what a better way to focus on, but to share about education and parenting, which I still think it's the most important job in the world. So that's it for today. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Marlen.
And thank you, the viewer. See you next time. Bye.